my god. Please be joking. Are you okay? I'm so sorry. Oh, thank God.
Starting route.
Okay, let's go. Okay. How about some music? Not a good time!
Hi everyone, welcome to the 2021 Rookie Awards interview series. My name's Christina Ryan and I'm a senior texture artist at Industrial Light and Magic in Sydney, Australia. I'm also a judge on the Rookies panel and the host of this interview series. And that was the amazing work of Matthew Corsillo. He not only took out Film of the Year in the winning category, but he also took runner-up in our Rookie of the Year 3D animation and 2D animation. So 3 massive awards there. So congratulations to Matt. And he also won a winner's badge, so received the highest score out of all entries in the Rookies. And as you could see, his work was absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome Matthew to our stream. Hey, Matthew.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. Your work is absolutely phenomenal, and I'm so excited to have you on the panel.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
So I was hoping you could start off by just sharing a little bit about yourself and where you were studying and what you're doing with yourself now.
Sure thing. Yeah. So my name's Matt. I grew up in Connecticut for like the first half of my life, and then I moved to Arizona, to like the Scottsdale area. That's where I spent the second half of my childhood. And then I went to school in Florida at RINGLING College of Art and Design. And then I just graduated earlier this year, and now I'm in New York. I'm working for a company called Hornets. We make like advertisements for a lot of big companies, and I'm a 3D generalist and a 2D animator, so I actually get to do both of my passions. So.
Yeah, well, we were discussing before which way would you go, 2D or 3D animation, so it's fantastic to hear you found something that fills both of those passions.
I thought I would have to choose, but I ended up not having to.
Yeah. Do you can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, or can you expand upon it a bit more, or is it top secret?
It's not. No, yeah. I mean, so I started here as an intern over this past summer. I started as a 2D intern, actually. I had applied for both positions, but at that time I did have to choose. So I decided to go with the 2D internship. But then as the internship was ending and we were discussing potentially full-time employment, they wanted to try me out on some 3D stuff. So then I did some 3D stuff, and then they ended up hiring me for both of them. And so I bounced back and forth between different projects. You know, I worked on like a 2D project for Bath and Body Works that just came out. They do a lot of ads for Kroger's, which are 3D ads that I've worked on some of. You know, stuff for Facebook, all sorts of stuff really. So it's really everything I've ever wanted because it's like I just get to do everything, and it's so fast paced, and I get to work on all these different projects. You know, I'm not working on one thing for like years and years, which I really like. So,
what we do in visual effects.
I mean, that sounds really cool too. I'd like to try that someday as well.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, all the skills are transferable. Hey, like you can really hop around and jump around, really, if you apply your knowledge. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the Ringling College of Art and Design? So, we also had Monica on a couple of weeks ago, and she's from the same school. And you know what they must be teaching you is insane. The caliber of work's amazing. Can you share a little bit more about it?
Sure. Yeah, Marika was a classmate of mine, and we had tons of classes together. She's so talented. She's really a great friend. Yeah, so there, it's very like rigorous. There's a very like strict curriculum. So the first year we spent learning a lot of fundamentals, mostly just like you know, traditional art fundamentals. You know, perspective drawing, figure drawing, all that stuff. But then after that first freshman year, you also take a few classes in traditional 2D animation, which is actually pretty much where I learned everything I know about 2D animation. So I sort of was doing that in the early years. Then after that, we moved on to the next 3 years are like just 3D animation stuff. You're learning everything about Maya, ZBrush, all the different programs. You're just making basically a bunch of little short, like 10 to 12 second animations from start to finish. You have to model and rig all of it. And then end of junior year and then throughout your entire senior year is when you have to create your own short film. You can make it by yourself or you can make it in a group. I chose to make mine by myself, so the kind of time limit on that is like 2 minutes-ish. And then also during that senior year, well, between junior and senior year, was when I kind of refound my passion for 2D animation, and I made a lot of my work just sort of on the side. I made a music video. That was what I ended up submitting to the rookies as well in the 2D category. So, yeah, I mean, it's a oh, yeah, there we go. It's a great school. I mean, it's really hard. The teachers really push you a lot, but as I was saying to you before, the students also really push each other a lot. So, I mean, I did love my experience there, and I do think that I would not be anywhere close to where I am without it. So.
That's incredible. No, it's like I said, it's fantastic to hear that you guys are so passionate and sort of pushing each other to do better, but also like in a friendly way. It's
really for sure. No, I mean, and the classmates are the best part of it, I would say. I think the students who go there,
do you keep in touch with any of them, or?
Oh yeah, especially now that I'm here in New York. A lot of my friends happen to live sort of in this general area, so I've seen a bunch of my friends since.
Oh, good. So glad. No, I made a lot of lifelong friends when I went through studying for this course, so it's fantastic to hear.
Oh yeah. That's great.
So at what point did you decide this was what you wanted to do? Like, have you always loved drawing, or what's your background?
Yeah, so I've definitely been drawing my whole life. Some of my earliest memories are definitely like my brother used to draw all the time, and I would just copy everything that he did. So that was kind of how I got into it, and I would just draw. You know, everyone doodles obviously in school and stuff, but I definitely considered myself an artist for my entire childhood. But then when I was in like middle school, I became really obsessed with Adventure Time.
Oh, I love that show.
And I know. No, it was seriously like my whole world from like 6th to 8th grade. So that was sort of like getting so into that was what made me want to go into animation. I originally wanted to like be like a storyboard artist for like TV animation or something like that. So then throughout high school, I kind of just, that was sort of my goal. I just did everything I could to try and put together a portfolio for college. and then I ended up getting into Ringling. And once I got there, honestly, like kind of my goals sort of changed a little bit because I started to see that the real, quality animation and big budget animation stuff was like in film. So I became much more obsessed with animated film and things like that. But I really wanted to do stuff that wasn't really out there yet. I wanted to try and like push animation a lot, which was sort of a lot of the inspiration behind the work that I ended up creating, and also sort of the reason why I ended up deciding to go into advertising, because there's so much more stylistic experimentation and so many different things that you can do there.
Yeah, 100%. And I was talking about before how your style is quite unique. It's sort of a blend of 3D animation, but also incorporates 2D elements, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was, I was really glad that I took that time to sort of refine my passion for 2D animation, because, I mean, some of the stuff that was in my film I wouldn't have been able to do, like there's like some water splashing that I didn't want to simulate water, so much, and it looks so much better to just 2D animate it in terms of the style of my film,
Yeah, 100%. Like you don't really want to go through and all of the effects of simulating water.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things they don't teach you much about at Ringling.
So someone in the audience, it sounds like your brother was a real huge inspiration to you.
That's my brother.
Yeah. Oh, that is your brother. Oh. Awkward. So, like, did you learn 3D animation? Sorry, did you learn the 3D tools at Ringling, or have you ever touched Maya and ZBrush and programs like that prior to coming into the program?
Pretty much everything I learned about 3D was at Ringling. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I think I tried to open Maya once when I was in like middle school, but nothing came of it. Doesn't make any sense to a 12-year-old.
No, that's fantastic that you've come into it, obviously taken a big liking for it, because and it's also goes to show that you can, like, your drawing skills are easily transferable to a 3D program. So that's great.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. I feel like I think 3D animation has so much more that it can do that has not been like tapped yet. And I love 2D animation. I love what I can do with it, but you can't get the same level of detail that you can in 3D animation. So there's so many possibilities with it. That's why I really love doing both of them.
Yeah. And I'm just on your website at the moment. I'm just sort of like scrolling through some of your different pieces of art, and some of these are not in your rookies entry, but I just felt intrigued. So I thought I'd just pop them on the screen at the same time as we talk. So what made you?
On my website.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so cute. What made you enter the rookies, or how did you hear about the rookies?
I think the first time I ever heard, a couple of years ago, I had seen like an older classmate of mine submit his work to the rookies, and I had just seen that he had won some awards there, and I just saw, I looked into it, and it just seemed like a great website that really cared about animation, and that really was like well judged. There's a lot of competitions out there where I feel like the people who are sort of behind it aren't necessarily in animation, or they don't necessarily care about animation in the same way that people who are actually in the industry do. So that was what kind of inspired me to want to submit my work.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your winning entries? So perhaps we could start off with your 3D work, your film of the year, and perhaps then we can move on to your 2D one.
Sure. Yeah, so my 3D work is my senior film from Ringling. So I spent my second semester of my junior year developing the story. We had to pitch it to the faculty and all sorts of things, and work with a lot of their notes. So sort of the inspiration was I wanted to create, I love like horror movies and body horror specifically, so I wanted to create something that felt very genuine. I didn't want to make something that felt like sort of a parody or anything. So I developed that story, and then my whole, and we also had to, during that same year, we had to develop all these character designs and things like that. And then during my senior year was when we just had to basically start to finish, make the whole thing in CG. So I had to model it, I had to rig it, texture it, everything. And my goal then was really to create something that felt very illustrative and try to push the boundaries a bit within the framework that I had. It's hard when I'm not, I consider myself somewhat technical, but I'm not. I wouldn't go into rigging or technical animation or anything like that. So you kind of have to work with what you have. But I'm really happy with having that. So.
Mm-hmm. And how about your 2D animated project? So you said that was a side project, that one?
Yeah, so I had a couple. The stuff I submitted to the rookies was sort of a combination of some of my work, but the main piece was a music video that I had animated for my brother, actually. Yeah, it was just I think it's 5 minutes long, and I just animated it over the summer. Mm-hmm. We sort of worked together on the story, but I animated it all actually just on my iPad in rough animator.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I did a little bit of compositing on it in Nuke.
Yeah.
But yeah. So and then the rest of my 2D work is just little side projects that I had done just to sort of show my abilities. I have one piece that's 2 thumb wrestlers, they're actual thumbs wrestling each other. Yeah. I think that's in my reel. Should be the first bit there. Yeah. Or I took some audio from a TV show and just animated some lip sync to it. Yeah, there they
are. Okay. Oh, they're thumbs. Is that what you said they were?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they are too. That's incredible. So a little bit about just for my curiosity, because I don't, I'm not into 2D animation. That's not something I've gone into myself.
Yeah.
How do you go about creating the animation, making sure it's smooth? Is it the same with 3D animation where you do key poses and then you animate the in-between frames? Is that how you do it?
Typically that's how I do it. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, you call for some straight ahead animation. But yeah, I mean, with this project, I started off, obviously with shooting reference and things like that. And then, yeah, I just drew probably maybe 10 key poses for the whole thing. And then, yeah, I started breaking it down. Honestly, the skills are totally transferable. And I find that the 2D skills really influence the 3D skills, especially.
Oh, 100%. And the difference between 2D and 3D animation is, to be able to keep the volume and the form of characters in 2D animation is really, really tricky. So it requires a lot of skill.
Yeah, thank you.
So what was your inspiration behind your entry? So if we're talking about the one on the screen now, which is your 3D film of the year, what inspired you? I mean, you said that you really enjoyed horror films.
Yeah. So I really love movies. So the big inspirations for this were The Thing is probably my all-time favorite movie, and I just love the body horror, and I love the transformation stuff there. And then also American Werewolf in London was a big one. The original inkling for the idea was kind of just the idea of a reverse werewolf, instead of a human turning into a dog, dog turning into a human. And then you kind of work backwards from there,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I took a lot of inspiration, for the cinematography from tons of different stuff. A lot of the exterior shots of the car and things were referenced from the movie Akira, which I also love. It's one of my favorite movies. So, and that movie also has some disgusting body horror in it as well. So that was also helped,
Juan or Junes, I'm sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly, says this reminds me of the Shaggy Da. What is it? The Shaggy DA old Disney movie. I haven't heard of that one. Do you know that one?
Yeah, I do. It's they made a remake of it just called The Shaggy Dog with Tim Allen. It's about a man turning into a dog.
All right, I have to put that on my list to watch. So what advice would you give someone, next year coming along and entering the Rookies Awards? What advice would you give them?
I think for me, I would say what really helps me at least is that I feel like if you have a vision and you really try and stick to it and you really try and make something that you feel will stand out, rather than trying to create something that might fit into like the critiques that the people give you per se. Obviously I think taking critiques from the people is hugely important, and I did a lot on my own work, but I think sometimes people kind of take it too deeply, and they sort of recede back into the norm per se. So I think honestly trying to like stick to the artistic direction that you have in your mind, and definitely referencing a lot of great artists who you love, is a huge help, to make your work stand out, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing that. So someone in the audience, they've said, are you getting into animation or strictly sticking to concept art? So I think concept art, I mean, that's something you would have just done in conjunction to your actual film, hey? Like, I think it's the other way around. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, totally. I do love concept art, but it's not really my passion. I love it for the sake of creating film, because that's what I love to do, is create
Yeah.
my work.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm definitely more of I'm an animator first, I'd say. I think animation is my favorite part of the 3D pipeline. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was just showing some concept art pictures, and this was just in assistance to your actual film. So multi-talented, can do everything.
Thank you.
So, I mean, the question I was going to ask you is how, if at all, has the Rookies changed your life? So that might be a little bit extreme, but I mean, how has it helped you? Did it help you launch your career at all, or get your name out?
I would say definitely, for sure. I mean, after I won some awards at the Rookies, I definitely had a lot more people coming to me. People in the industry knew me much better.
Yeah.
So I definitely was approached by some studios, and that was a huge help. In the end, even though I ended up going with the studio that I was already interning at, it definitely was like very helpful, both for my career and also for my confidence. To have other studios approach me.
100%. I think getting your name out there. I mean, it's really challenging to get your name out there, especially in an industry. I mean, it's a small industry, but it's also hard as a student to get your name out. So it's I think it really helps.
Oh, for sure.
So any plans to take your work to festivals such as Sundance or the London Film Festival? Someone wants to know.
I've applied to some festivals. Some have gotten back to me. There are some, I did apply to Sundance actually, although their results don't come until like December, I think.
Yeah.
But honestly, I am kind of planning to sort of stop submitting to most festivals, at least, because most of them require that your film not be released yet. And I'm planning to release my film later this month. I'm releasing on Halloween, so I'll be putting it up on YouTube. So I mean, if there are any festivals out there that don't mind that, I would still be more than happy to submit to them. But that's not really my focus right now. But maybe with some of my future works, though.
I didn't realize that you weren't able to release them. That's
it can depend.
Yeah,
it can depend. But I find a lot of them will say that in their requirements.
Well, Matt, I was hoping you'd be able to maybe now share your screen and show us some behind the scenes work.
Totally, yeah. Let's see. Share screen. I'm going to. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. And Mason, I'll get to your question after the sharing of the screen. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're seeing these color keys, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so these are the color keys that I had made for my film. you know, the one sort of in the middle area in the tunnel sequence, I basically made a color key for pretty much every single shot. So the ones in the tunnel sequence ended up changing quite a bit just because I felt they stood out a little too much. I wanted them to feel a bit more in line with the rest of the film, but I still wanted them to be dramatic. But the ones that take place before and after the tunnel sequence stayed pretty. I tried to stay very faithful to those color keys, and they were incredibly helpful when I was texturing and lighting my work, and also when I was compositing it. A lot of the color came together in the compositing. So, yeah, I mean, I can't recommend doing this enough. Honestly, I think it was hugely helpful for me.
Can you explain what a color cue is? Sorry, like just for those who don't know.
Totally, yeah. So I basically, I would look at the shot that I had animated. I would just take I would just have that up as reference, and then I just kind of block it in just with like the basic colors that I want to, you know, like so that when people like squint their eyes at the final shot, like these are kind of the colors that they get from it, you know. So it's just sort of a very rough painting that I would do for every single shot to try and give myself reference for later, which was, you know, hugely important for this. So then this is for my visual development class in preparation for the film. I had made this painting of the character. Her name is Pam, and that was also incredibly helpful both for modeling to have already pre-planned all the shapes that I wanted, but also for the texturing too, because I really wanted to capture the brush strokes of my actual painting. So having that up was very useful, and a big rendering target for mine was the painter Max Ulickney, the illustrator. That's his painting down here in the corner. So I used that as a big target for the kinds of brushes he used, and I tried to get that actually into the textures of my 3D model. And then also for 3D, I mean, just to kind of prove to the faculty that this could be done, you know, I was using Spider-Verse as a reference. And then this was an early version of the final model. As you can see, the hair was not complete back then. Yeah, so some stuff changed between here and the final model. Her hands got a bit smaller and her ears went higher up, but this is sort of a general idea. So yeah, I mean, I was really referencing that painting very hard, and I wanted to keep that geometricness, you know, and not a lot of stuff gets smoothed out in 3D, and I wanted to avoid that. This was my painting for David the dog. The the big thing that changed with him was his hair. I do love the poofy hair. Here, I can show the model.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I still love the poofy hair, but I mean, I had gotten some notes that he looked kind of like a lion, and also in the end, I was so glad that I ended up cutting it down because it would have been so horrible to animate it. It would have been clipping through the seat all the time, and I would have had to simulate it, which, I mean, in some shots I did simulate it, but this would have been so much worse to simulate, you know? But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm really, he didn't change very much at all. I basically just gave him a haircut, and that was it.
What did you use for groom?
Use XGen, which
use XGen, yeah.
The best. Yeah, I love XGen.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I ended up putting more XGen on her sweater later on.
Oh, nice.
So not in this version, but in the final version.
Yeah.
And then this is the first pass animation I had. So you're going to see it's incredibly different. I mean, like this first shot especially, because I completely changed the staging of all of it and everything. I mean, it just looks so bad.
Oh, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's.
Well, you know, I mean, and so this was probably maybe like, you know, 2-3 weeks into animation.
Yeah.
And
that's
you
incredible.
have to block it all in.
Yeah. No, honestly, this is what all locked-in animation looks like before it's smoothed off.
Yeah. It's just so funny to see it compared to the final thing.
Yeah. It must be, really cool to see it and go, wow, like, look how far I've come.
Right. I haven't looked back at this video for, like, you know, the whole year pretty much, so.
I'm enjoying it.
No, I really like looking at it. But yeah, I mean, some stuff is in steps, you know, some stuff is is like just sort of.
Oh, that got me when
very
his arm fell off.
bad. I was hoping.
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
and
I was
that
like,
was
what a cute dog.
yeah. And that was this
Oh.
shadow back here. Oh yeah, going all the way back. But this shadow was a 2D animation that I had done on my iPad, and then I just projected it onto the car. So I kind of tried to bring in both my loves.
Did you do any paint overs on the final 3D? Because the final 3D looks quite 2D as well, if that makes sense. Like
totally.
the yeah.
I tried to avoid doing any paint overs because then I would have to do it for every single frame, you know.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of work in Nuke for compositing.
Yeah.
To try and make it. I mean, the thing is, to start with, I used the Arnold Toon Shader for all my textures, which was a huge. That was definitely huge for the base. You know, it got me a lot of that. You know, sharp edges and the shadows and things like that. But then going off of there, I just did a ton of work with like masking and all sorts of different nodes to try and make it look as painterly as possible in Nuke. So, yeah, because I wanted, you know, the computer to automate it for me as much as possible, so I had to do a lot of work in that sense. This was actually an early test of the style, and again, you can see it looks very different. She looks like a tomato.
Yeah, it's quite bright.
Yeah.
But I love your use of complementary colors, I must say.
Oh, thank you. And for that, I referenced paintings a lot, you know, like paintings that did use very like staunch color palettes, because I wanted, you know, it is, once again, it's very easy to, because of what Maya gives you by default in Arnold, it's very easy to kind of default to that more realistic color palette, you know.
Yeah,
so having those paintings to reference was like a huge help to like force me to remember to keep things very, very harsh. And like nothing was like textured in this version too, so it was very early. But then this is just the final, just for comparison. But
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
How did you with the color palette? How did you keep to the colors? Is it in the lighting, or is that a compositing trick?
So it's a combination of so many things. With the Arnold Toon Shader, when you put a light up against it, no matter what the color of the light is, it will always. If you you basically put in a ramp, like a gradient, to tell it how to understand the shadows. And if you just have like a gradient that's just black to white, it's just going to take the local color of whatever your textures are. So it's not gonna apply any color to it. So you actually have to change the colors of the ramp and of each individual interpolation. So I would do that. I would go in there with some very saturated colors for you know, every ramp probably has maybe like 5 different interpolations, like, you know, light to highlight to light to, you know, all that stuff, you know. So the render that I would get out would be pretty saturated, but it would still be pretty kind of toned down. So then I would bring it into Nuke, and I played a lot with the colors. You know, I would often mask off certain areas. There's kind of almost a lot of fake light in there. I think the best example of that is like here, for example, this whole orange light here, that's all just like in Nuke. That's just like basically a mask that I drew out. So that's not really, and then I just use that, and I use that to, within that mask, I increase the brightness of that area, you know, and the contrast as well. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, like I should have gotten some pre and post composite screenshots to share, but you should see how different it is.
Oh, even explaining it, it's so good to hear about your workflow, you know.
Oh, thank you. There's like so many little things in here, like this whole shadow of her right here. That's just a 2D animation that I made of her just like sitting within there. I don't know, all sorts of random stuff like that. But yeah, so I can stop sharing my screen now.
Oh, cool. Hey, thanks so much for sharing that. That was fantastic.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I have some other stuff if we have extra time and you want to see any more stuff. But
Oh, we've got time if you want to share it now.
Okay, let me pull it up. Let's see, what do I got? Yeah, here's something I could show. Wow. All right. This was a shot reel I made this between junior and senior year. So this was based on my storyboards that I had done, and the story was actually slightly different at this point. So some of these shots were not actually in the final film. Like this first shot wasn't there, but basically I was taking from films that I loved and films that I felt the cinematography would work really well for my film, and I was using that as reference for my layout. So yeah, like this shot was pretty much exactly the shot early on where you see he's in the back seat and his hand comes up, you know. So this was hugely helpful for making my shots feel very cinematic. This was like, this is the shot where you see her driving and the hand comes up to change the channel. And it's like, this is a shot I would never think of on my own, you know. But it gets all the information out there because we can see her seeing the hand, we can see the radio.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this was very, very helpful for me to be able to get a more cinematic feeling to my whole film. That's Akira. There's a lot of shots from Akira.
Yeah. So are these all movies that you'd seen previously, or did you have to do a bit of research to try and find something similar to your idea?
Most of them are movies I'd seen previously. A few of them are actually movies that I had never seen. Not a lot, but a few. Just like if I really couldn't think of a good reference for a shot, then I would just like search on YouTube, or I would ask friends, you know, if they had any ideas. So yeah, I mean, that's very helpful. I also, at the time, I was using there's a website called Shot Deck, where you can like search like sitting or something, and it'll give you all these shots of movies where people are sitting. It's a great website. Unfortunately, now it's like subscription only.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it free or is it to pay?
It was free at the time, but not anymore. So,
Shot Deck.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still a great site if people are willing to pay for the subscription.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for sharing that. It's because reference is so important in like anything you do. We don't just come up with these things out of our head. People often get pretty daunted by that prospect. But I mean, whenever I'm texturing, I've got a picture of what I'm texturing up like the whole time because it's what we do. So Mason in the audience has just said most animation studios have defaulted to a fairly similar look, not similar to yours, but they're all sort of the same. Were you ever afraid that making a film look quite different might hurt your job prospects? That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. I was not actually, especially because working with, my classmates, who are all people who I know are the future of the animation industry, every one of us feels the same way. We're all like, I wish movies looked different. I wish people would try something new, and so, but not that I love so many of the animated films that are out currently, but so I didn't, and then also seeing in the past couple of years that people are trying to do that, especially with like streaming services like Netflix, who are really like totally changing the animation industry. And I mean, Spider-Verse came out maybe 2 years before I graduated, and I mean, that movie was hugely successful, and I think everybody kind of saw that people like this, and so I that was never really a concern of mine. I mean, my bigger concern was whether or not I could actually pull it off, but yeah.
No, I think that's very fair because everything is very similar. So I think it's great to stand out and just do something out of the norm. And it's funny that you mentioned the Spider-Verse because that's something which when I saw your work, I was like, oh, that reminds me of that movie. So I can see you've drawn inspiration from that.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think what Spider-Verse did so well is mainly just that they stuck very closely to their concept art, and that was kind of just what I was trying to draw from them, like not necessarily trying to make my film look like theirs, but trying to make it look like the concept art that I was inspired by.
Yeah. And I think Trip, your brother, would like to know. Can you show any behind the scenes from your 2D animation?
For my 2D animation, I think it says.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I have anything saved on my computer. Let's see.
Maybe your brother does.
Yeah, he probably does. No,
Probably has something else to show.
I'm not seeing. No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I can't. I mean, honestly, most of the behind the scenes stuff from that film is on the screen because I just made it just like I barely even did a lot of the typical process. You know, I whipped out the character designs in like a day. I did the storyboard in like a week, and then I just animated it start to finish in like a month.
Oh well. So in the audience, how long is the film and what was the duration of the production? So it was 1.5 years, wasn't it? Around there?
Yeah, that was how long. I mean, the first half of the year, that was my second semester of junior year. So I also had some other classes during that time. So, you know, that wasn't just like a full semester of just prepping for the film. But the senior year was like, 100%. I had no other classes, so I was just doing that all day. So yeah. And then the film itself, I think the actual animation is like 1:55 or like 2 minutes. You know.
Awesome. Are there any more questions from the audience? I think that's about it. All right. Matt, I think that's it for my questions. I guess, do you have any questions for me or anything else you'd like to talk about?
I'm not sure. I mean, you said you're working at Industrial Light Magic down there, right? Do you guys work closely with the studios here in the U.S.? Yeah.
So we all like different islands will have different productions and different movies. So we won't have the same movies that the US ones are working on. But depending on, you know, some movies are shared between the companies as well. I know we work closely with San Francisco on some of the movies. So, so yeah, like it's we've got heaps of movies in production at the moment, but we sort of just, as an artist, you work on one movie at a time. So I work on one movie and I don't really see what else is happening with the others. So,
yeah. I get that.
I've only been there a couple months.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really cool. And do you guys use Substance over there to texture?
Yes and no. So I use Substance at my old job at Rising Sun Pictures, and I absolutely love Substance Painter. I'm a huge advocate for it. ILM have a very, their pipeline is, it's been in development for however old ILM is. So it takes a lot longer for new software to be able to be integrated into the pipeline. So we're currently still using Mari. But we use Substance Painter for to create tileable materials and to bake all of our maps and to assist us with our texturing. But it's not the main software at ILM. We use Mari. So that was something I had to learn. I had to get back on the Mari bandwagon after using Substance for 5-6 years.
That's so interesting. Substance is Photoshop to Mari, like Photoshop is to Substance.
100%.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. Mari's fantastic. It's, it can do a lot. It can have a lot more geometry. You can have huge environments in Mari, whereas Substance, you sort of have to break it up a bit more. But ILM, they've got their own pipeline integrated in Mari, so it almost feels like Substance Painter, if that makes sense. You open it up and it doesn't even look like Mari. They've changed it a lot, which is amazing. That big companies can do that. Someone in the audience had just asked me what my occupation is. I'm a senior texture artist, so we color in the models. That's what I tell people. Professional colorer.
No, texturing is one of my favorite things to do.
Well.
It's just because I've always wanted to be good at painting, and I have been working on it, and I've been it's still something that I want to keep pursuing, but I find it just so much more fun to paint a 3D model, because you just get to worry about you get to just worry about the you know, the nitty gritty stuff, and you don't have to worry about like the shadows and things like that, you know, because they're on the model already, you know.
Oh, 100%. Like I've tried to paint, like I'll try to go back to traditional painting or just drawing, and
Yeah.
it's like, what? I have to paint shadows and highlights. What is this? Like, everything I paint is completely flat, and then I'll sort of have to
Yeah.
like add fake shadows in after I've done because I'm just
Yeah.
so used to like, yeah, painting flat. But
Yeah.
it's no, honestly, like I couldn't imagine going into another department. I love texturing, but I actually
Me
started
too.
off in animation and rigging and then
Oh, no way.
changed to texturing. Like not, I didn't do it professionally. It was in like when I was
Oh,
a student, I
in
wanted
school.
to do rigging and animation. So that's why I loved seeing your film because I always wanted to work in 3D animation, like the cartoony sort of stuff.
Mm.
And then somehow
Mm.
found my way into visual effects, and I wouldn't turn back. I love what I do, but it's just crazy how your path can just change. Hey.
Totally. Well, I mean, I think, and they both inform each other so well. I mean, I have done some more realistic animation stuff, just on previous projects, and I love doing it all. You know, like,
Yeah.
and I do want to. I want to. You know, I would love to work in VFX someday. You know, like I just want to do everything. That's my goal.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for like joining. And you know, if you ever did want to come into visual effects, give me a buzz and I will help you out.
Oh, thank you
If
so
you want
much.
any
That's
texturing advice.
awesome. That's so sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you. I will. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course. No, it's been a pleasure. And yeah, I wish you all the best and good luck with your new role.
Thank you very much. And you as well.
No worries. See you later, everyone. And thanks, audience, for the awesome questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.